Ladies, gentlemen, and haradrim of all ages, with Season 6 starting to wind down a little bit even as we enter the mid-season patch, just due to not really any new content being added in with the update, and with the announcement of Season 7 and its main changes coming up in the campfire chat with the developers happening on this coming Thursday. There is a subject that I really want to talk about in relation to all of this. What happened to the seasonal power-ups? In Season 1, we had the Malignant Heart powers, which used our gem slots to give us what amounted to an extra legendary aspect level of effect from a pool of choices, and while most players only used a few of them, it was a fun system that existed that had a lot of variety to builds that only existed while that season happened. Then it left the game, and then it even inspired some uniques and legendary aspects that we've had added to the game since then. Season 2 was even better with this for the whole, vampiric power system, which was honestly really awesome. It was the best version of seasonal powers that they've done as of this point. Different builds and different classes genuinely used different choices because there was actual variance and nicheness to them. Of course, some of them were a bit more universal, but it made things like basic skill builds really strong. They were impactful, and importantly, they were really fun to use. This was the season where pretty much every player was reaching near attack speed cap, and there's just something really fun about a season where everything feels fast. Then we had Season 3, and that was where this hit a sort of wall with the Seneschal construct, which was like sort of a seasonal power-up, but it didn't really boost the player themselves or give us anything that really affected our builds properly. And now we have Mercenaries. It almost feels like the constructs was like a test or a precursor to the Mercenary system, almost like a public-private test realm, and it sort of fell flat a little bit in its initial introduction as well. Then we moved to Season 4 and 5 and now Season 6, and all of these have had the most major changes within them, be fixes or reworks to major systems with the game, and some additions like the Infernal Hordes, which is really good, and all this stuff is honestly a good thing to happen. And in Season 4, it was definitely a good thing to do. We all understood that maybe losing seasonal powers into new activity for a season to just rework important systems was acceptable, and it was a good thing. But then Season 5 came, and we did get a new activity. We got Infernal Hordes, but no seasonal power-up again, and that was a little bit disappointing, but most people were interested enough in Infernal Hordes as an activity that it didn't come up much. People didn't talk about that or complain about that a whole lot. And then we had Season 6 now, and if you consider the fact that technically the only seasonal part of Season 6, the only thing that changed if you didn't buy the expansion as well, are the progression changes, and specifically the addition of the Realmwalker event. It's been a really light season for seasonal mechanics, and we are now at our third season without seasonal power-ups. The seasonal power-ups just added so much flavor and interest for the first two seasons, even if players didn't like the third season's iteration as much, but we now have as many seasons without power-ups as we do with power-ups. And the more that this happens, the more I'm starting to be afraid that this is just the normal now for Diablo 4. That they just think that we're alright with that we're cool with it. And look, I appreciate the reworks being done to the game and the base systems. I know they take a lot of effort and time and all of that, but that's just sort of the base things that we need. You need to add new things to the game as well on a seasonal basis to keep player interest. And if you want to keep people interested on a seasonal basis specifically, you need to make them limited time parts of these seasons. You need to make them exciting or unique in a way that they clearly will not be happening again in future seasons. You need to create a sort of feeling of the fear of missing out, to make people think if they don't play now, they'll never get to experience this specific unique version of Diablo 4's gameplay. And to do that, you need something like seasonal powers, up to the quality of the standard of Season 2 at least, where it was honestly quite fun. Right now, we are in a really sort of weird time for Diablo 4, especially with players dropping off like flies right now, much earlier in a season cycle than they have since Season 3. But I think the reason is that the game is just too stagnant right now. It feels weird to say that in a season that ties in with an expansion release that added 2 new activities to the game and a new class and all that stuff, but again, that stuff is specific to the expansion. None of it is technically the season, and while Dark Citadel was cool on a first run-through, it's not the most gripping repeat experience, which makes it almost like a story continuation more than a proper endgame activity, especially with a very low reward-to-time ratio. Kurask Undercity is genuinely fun in my opinion, but lost a lot of its edge due to the power level of the strongest builds, not even just on spiritborn, making it never really a question if you will get to the full tier 4 reward, not to mention actually failing the activity anymore. Though that said, there are also plenty of bugs that make this activity less enjoyable too, including one where you can kill every single enemy on all 3 floors of an undercity run, and sometimes only be at reward tier 3 just due to pure RNG spawns being bad, so it isn't perfect either. The problem though is while these things are good, in the same way that reworking legendaries and itemization was good in Season 4, in the same way that reworking all the uniques was good in Season 5, and in the same way that redoing the progression system as a whole for the game was great this season too. The stat squish, all those things, all of them were great changes that will continue to make the game better over time, but none of them are gripping. They don't make you want to play more, they just make you feel better while you're playing. They don't make you want to start playing again if you stopped. That's the job of new things. None of these really incentivize you to play the game more, and this was also hurt by a general feeling of loot drop quality just being much lower than it was last season too. And so all the time that you spent in the endgame has just felt less rewarding than it used to as well. And this is a whole negative in itself, but to me, those negatives are only negatives because we're looking at the full picture of the game. What we are seeing with the game right now, today, outside of literally just realmwalkers and seething opals, all of that stuff will be there next season, and more stuff will be reworked or added so the game will be better to play in general. And this sort of removes an incentive to play immediately, because if each season they are now just making the game better and better overall, and none of the things that are making it feel better are locked to these seasons, it's almost like an investment. The longer you wait between stopping playing the game and starting again, the more positive changes will have happened, the more you will enjoy your return to Diablo 4, and the better the game will feel, and you won't have missed anything, really. There is simply no incentive to interact with the game on a seasonal basis, or long-term within a single season either anymore, because you can always just come back next season, you won't miss anything, there won't be a whole lot new happening even in the mid-season patches anymore. Is this a bad thing for players? Honestly, I'm not sure that it is, because if you can take longer breaks and come back to a better game, that is a good thing. It just means that there is less frequent injections of content and less frequent reasons to keep playing the game. So it's sort of up to how you feel about it. If you want a game that you will be playing literally all year round, this isn't a good thing. If you want a game that will be better a year from now than it is right now, it is sort of a good thing. I know for a fact that the developers want as many people playing as often as possible, and so again I come back to my main question. Why are they not interested in doing seasonal power-ups anymore? If there is one way to generate attention and interest on a seasonal basis, it is something that will make the gameplay of that season completely unique from any other one in Diablo 4. You can make new activities and have them stick around forever, and that's great, but seasonal power-ups are special, and as far as I'm concerned, even Season 3 with the construct, which most people weren't a fan of, is still way more interesting than having no seasonal power-ups at all. All this said, we're just a couple of days out from the PTR stream to talk about Season 7, and while usually they don't get into proper seasonal stuff in these PTR streams, so much as just like balance changes and system changes that will be happening and checked on the PTR, and so I'm really just hoping on Thursday that we will hear about the return of the concept of seasonal powers for Diablo 4, and if we do, we'd be able to test them and actually help them get better balanced in the PTR too. And if we do, I think we're on a good track for Season 7. If we don't hear about these coming back, I'll pretty much just be assuming the concept of seasonal powers are dead in this game until they bring it up again themselves. That pretty much does it for today, everyone. Just a short discussion about one specific part of the early Diablo 4 seasons that made them feel interesting and unique to me that I just don't understand why they've left behind, and my hopes for them to bring it back again sooner rather than later too. I hope you've enjoyed this then, and let me know your own thoughts on any of this down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.